Minimalists.
I am a very motivated person. However, even though I have some interesting business ideas that would benefit my career in dancing, I cannot get the motivation to just do it instead of planning it. What motivates you to work, especially if you're passionate about it?
Well, my short answer is passion is one half love and one half obsession. And really what I mean by that is I think of writing. Like, if people ask me, like, what is your passion? For me, like, that is the thing that I'm most passionate about is writing. But it is true drudgery most of the time. I teach a writing class now, and one of the things I try to convey is, like, when you first start writing, it's 90% drudgery, 10% sort of payoff. And that changes over time. It's 80-20, 70-30. Eventually, I think you get to a point where it's about 50-50. But even now, even though I write pretty much every day, it's still 50-50. There are good days and there are bad days. And the bad days, I still want to put my head through the wall. But on the good days, I'm thankful for those bad days. Some of the best writing days aren't days where I wrote 2,000 words or 5,000 words. They're days when I wrote negative 4,000 words. And I just did a lot of editing and deleting. But I couldn't have done that without all the drudgery of just getting the composition side of things, getting it onto the paper, right? And so for me, I love doing it, but I also I love the result, but I also I get obsessed about it. I'm willing to dive deep. And obsession is about going deep on something for long, sustained periods of time. The other pithy answer I have here is perspiration trumps aspiration. That was my problem for a long time. I was an aspiring writer, but I just aspired all over myself and didn't do any of the work, right? And so I would say it sounds to me like Natalie needs to find the leverage to obsess over it. I mentioned Derek Sivers a moment ago, and he basically in his book talks about the value of ideas being low, but the value of action being really high. And the last thing I'll say is accountability partners, or just having people in your life who will help hold you accountable. I woke up this morning really tired, and if it was just me recording this podcast, I would have canceled it on myself. But I have other people who I'm accountable to, right? TK is going to be here. Ryan's going to be here. Sean's going to be here. I've rescheduled with all of them. And Ryan's leaving tomorrow. Like, I know, like, okay, I need to show up and do this. And having someone here to help hold me accountable is helpful.
All right. My pithy answer is an idea is worth nothing without action. And TK, I did not know that the root of passion it was to suffer. And when we say,
let's hope I'm right about that.
you absolutely are.
So let's say, I mean, that has literally changed how I look at the word passion now. Because when someone says I'm really passionate about X, well, now I'm going to ask, well, what kind of suffering have you been through?
Yeah. So
to make that happen.
When you say I'm passionate about something, I'm willing to suffer for it. I'm willing to suffer through the drudgery of writing to have written.
So Natalie, you know, when I look at her question, what I really hear her saying is I love to daydream. I really love to daydream some really big ideas, and I just don't have the motivation to do it. And again, an idea without action is nothing. But the question is Natalie, what are you willing to suffer through to make those ideas come to fruition? Sitting around and daydreaming. We all do that. We all love to do that, man. Like, I know I'll get a really good idea and I'll call Josh. Oh man, I got this really, really good idea. And I haven't done this in a while, but I used to do this a lot. And Josh would be like, okay, great. Let's look at what we have on our plate right now. How are we going to be able to fit this into what we already have? And when I started looking at it that way, well, I call you less and less now because I know that an idea without action is nothing. Yeah. So I guess, you know, the advice I want to give to Natalie is, you find that leverage that at least helps you take that first step. If there isn't a barrier in the way, I mean, if it's fear of success or whatever it may be, I mean, I think it's important to recognize those fears, but she has to find some sort of leverage to at least take the first step towards bringing one of these ideas to fruition.
Yeah. I think that's the key. So my take on this is, if you're passionate about something, and you can't motivate yourself to take that first step, then your first step is probably too big, and you need to reduce the size of that. Passion is a very interesting thing, because when we say we're passionate about something, that concept tends to be bundled up with other assumptions about how a person would behave if they were truly passionate. So for instance, you hear people say things like, well, I think I love writing, but I guess if I really loved it, I would write every day. And since I don't actually write every day, I guess I don't love it. Right? Or I think I love running, but people who really love it, they run 5 miles a day and I haven't ran all week. So therefore, even though my heart is telling me that I love it, I will logically deduce the conclusion that I must not love what my heart is telling me that I love. And so we get confused, right? Because we have assumptions about what a passionate person would do. And then we have like the visceral experience of being passionate. Those two things are bundled and it muddies our thinking about it. And you got to sort those two things out. And you got to say, okay, wait a minute. If I'm passionate about something and I can't motivate myself to act on it, then that probably means whatever my version of acting on it is bundled up with these assumptions that need to be discarded. So if you're passionate about running and you can't motivate yourself to run, then ask yourself, well, what does running look like right now? That may be, well, running 5 miles a day, right? Running. And it's like, okay, so back away from that and make it ridiculously easy to start.
Yeah.
How does it feel to run for 1 block a day? Well, that seems like something I can do. Get out there and do that. But you know what stops us from doing that? The two greatest motivation killers, obligation and guilt. You're motivated to do something already, but then obligation comes in on one side and says, yeah, but if you were really motivated, you would do it 10 times more. Right. And then guilt comes in and says, yeah, I know you say you're motivated, but you only did a little bit and your passion is worthy of so much more. Therefore, your passion isn't really there. And you got to kill those things. So an example in my own life, I'm passionate about reading. I love it more than anything else, but I went for about 6 months in my life not reading because I was just so busy and I didn't have time to read books. And you know what the breakthrough was for me is when I said, you know what? I'm just going to read 1 blog post a day. And I'm going to commit to that no matter what. And you know what? Not only have I read every day, but I've had many days where I felt like crying because I feel like I am insulting this thing I love because I'm only reading. I'm not a real reader. I don't love reading because if I did, I would make time like all of those people who write articles about how Warren Buffett read 17 books a week, right? And that's how we kill ourselves with it, man. But you got to make it ridiculously easy to start and be loyal to your passion in the way that you can be. Get rid of the obligation and the guilt.
God, dude, that is so good. Well, it makes me think of that Rachel Cruz book that I'm going through right now. Love Your Life, Not Theirs.
Yeah.
And she just does a great job in the first chapter of just showing how comparisons will kill us. It will really take away from our life if we sit there and try to compare ourselves to, we want to be a writer. So let's look at how my favorite writer writes and what they've done. Oh, I'm not anywhere near that, so I guess I'll never be a writer.
It could be debilitating because it's like my favorite writer is David Foster Wallace, but I also know I'll never write Infinite Jest. And if that was my expectation, then it would just give up right now. In fact, most people can't even read Infinite Jest, let alone write the book, right? But instead, if I say, wow, if my standard, maybe I can one day craft a sentence that is like David Foster Wallace, and then I try to do that.
You mean a 400-word sentence?
No, I mean that's also true. There's an 835-word sentence in everything that remains. But that was also intentional, right? It was a shift in the book, and it's supposed to be this out loud thing. But anyway, I'm getting too far away from that. But basically, what I realized, there's this beauty, and I don't have to have the expectation I'm going to write Infinite Jest, but maybe I can write a sentence that is beautiful.
I love that, man. I mean, even thinking about like Hemingway, who's a great writer. Yeah. What is it? Little Shoes, For Sale, Never Worn, like the shortest story.
Baby Shoes, For Sale, Never Worn, something like that.
So even that is something so simple, which is genius. It's like you can just take that little bit and be like, all right, can I make a 6-word story that is, just starting with something really, really small.
Yeah, constraints breed creativity.
Yeah.
We're talking about adding some constraints. I mean, I think Hemingway was radically overrated, but I'm just saying that because podcast Sean's here.
Josh just loves to ruffle feathers.
No, I don't think that at all. I think Hemingway is a very talented author and writer, and I just like I like messing with the people I care about most.
Was there a name for the person who asked that question?
Nathalie, I believe was her name. I kept saying Natalie, but it's Nathalie.
Oh, I thought it was just a weird spelling for Natalie.
It could be. Okay. Either way, Nathalie or Natalie. One thing before TK finishes up this question so we can move on.
Micro speed. Right?
Simple Triggers is an essay I wrote. We'll put a link to it on the website. I do 60 pull-ups minimum every single day. And the only reason I do that is not because I have a goal every day to do 60 pull-ups, because to me that's daunting. Even now I think about it, I'm like, and even though I do it every day, I'm like, to do 60 pull-ups or run 5 miles, whatever it might be, that sounds daunting. But I know that I walk below the door between my bedroom and my bathroom at least 10 times, and every time I walk below there, I do 6 pull-ups. And before I go to the bathroom, it's 6 quick pull-ups. I'm done. I walk back out, 6 pull-ups. And I do that minimum 10 times a day. Quite often, it's a lot more than that, right? Yeah. And so, and if not, I just drink more water. It forces me to go to the bathroom more frequently. And I have these simple triggers. So maybe the other answer for Nathalie here is what are your triggers? Like, you want to do these things. You say you're very motivated, but what are the triggers that are going to take that motivation and turn it into action?